For the first time in modern history, we could be on the verge of something truly historic, a great reversal in global energy leadership. Just think about that. The idea that nations currently playing catch-up could not only close the gap, but actually build an energy infrastructure that is fundamentally better than what exists in the world's richest countries, that's a total game changer. This isn't just about skipping a few steps. It's about building the future, right now.
Okay, so here's the plan for our explainer. First, we're going to look at this deep divide, this schism between the old energy world and the new. Then we'll unpack the toolkit of technologies that's making this leap possible. After that, we'll see what this new grid actually looks like and explore the financial wizardry that's making it all happen. But we also have to get real with a serious reality check before we look at what is, truly, a race to the future. And this right here is the central paradox we're diving into today. For developed nations, that massive grid they built, once their greatest asset, has kind of become a chain around their ankle. It's old, it's brittle, and it is unbelievably expensive to upgrade. But for developing nations, the very lack of that old infrastructure, well, that's turned into this incredible strategic advantage. It's a clean slate, a chance to build a smarter, more resilient system from the ground up.
To really get why this opportunity is so huge, we first have to dig into why the old way of doing things is, well, broken. And we're not just talking about old wires here. We're talking about a whole outdated philosophy of how energy is supposed to work.
You know, this is the grid most of us have always known. It's a one-way street. You've got these giant power plants, coal, gas, whatever, pushing electricity out through this huge web to our homes. It was a brilliant design for a simple, predictable world. The problem is, that world doesn't exist anymore. And its biggest weakness? The single point of failure. If one huge power plant or a critical transmission line goes down, millions of people can lose power just like that. And this number, wow. This represents this massive, invisible tax on the entire system. In a country like India, over 21% of the electricity that's generated just vanishes. It turns into heat off the wires before it can power a single light bulb. Think about that. It's this huge parasitic load that these old grids are just stuck with, wasting incredible amounts of money and resources. And this chart really lets you see that schism in action. Yeah, a developed grid like the one in the US is way more efficient, only losing about 5%. But here's the kicker, the key insight. Developing nations don't have to just build a slightly better version of that same old system. They have the chance to sidestep this whole problem of energy loss by generating power locally right where people actually use it. So the bottom line for wealthy countries is that fixing the past is an absolute nightmare. The technical jargon is a nonlinear optimization problem, but here's what that really means. Every time you try to fix one thing, it creates 3 new, unpredictable problems somewhere else. It's literally like trying to upgrade the engine of a car while it's barreling down the highway. The complexity is just staggering, and the cost is astronomical. All right, so enough about the old problems. This is where the story gets really exciting. Because a powerful new set of tools has emerged that makes it possible not just to patch the old system, but to build something completely different, from scratch. So first up in the toolkit is something called ultra-high voltage transmission. Just think of it as a superhighway for electricity. The physics is actually pretty simple. When you crank up the voltage way, way high, the current goes down for the same amount of power. And lower current means you lose way less energy as heat. This lets you shoot massive amounts of electricity over thousands of kilometers with incredible efficiency. And nobody, I mean nobody, has gone all in on UHV like China has. They literally call it the bullet train for power. They've built over 48,000 kilometers of these things. It's a national power backbone that lets them zip clean energy from their super sunny and windy western deserts to the massive cities on their east coast. It completely changes the energy geography of a country. Now, for the other side of the coin, distributed renewable energy, or DRE. If UHV is the superhighway for moving power long distances, DRE is about not having to move it far at all. We're talking about generating power right where you need it, on rooftops, in villages, in local communities. It's a total flip of the script. It's a bottom-up grid. And this is a real game changer. Why? Because DRE directly attacks that huge problem of transmission and distribution losses we were just talking about. By generating power close to home, you just cut out that long, wasteful journey. It makes the whole system naturally more efficient, more resilient, and frankly, a lot more democratic.
Okay, and you've got these UHV superhighways and all these local DRE side roads. What makes it all work together? AI. Artificial intelligence is the brain, the central nervous system of this modern grid. I mean, think about it. A grid with millions of inputs and outputs, rooftop solar, wind farms, electric cars charging and discharging, is way too complicated for a human to manage. AI is the thing that can predict a cloud is about to cover a solar farm and, in a split second, reroute power from a wind farm hundreds of miles away. It's the brain power that makes the whole thing hum. So, what happens when you combine this incredible toolkit of UHV, DRE, and AI? Well, you don't just get a greener grid. You get a grid with a totally different and, frankly, superior architecture.
Yeah, this is the key question, right? Because it's not just about slapping some solar panels on the old system. We're talking about building something that is structurally different from the ground up. So, what does that difference actually look like? This table just lays it out so clearly. The whole architecture flips. We go from that top-down hub-and-spoke model to a decentralized network of interconnected microgrids. The flow of power changes from a one-way street to a dynamic two-way conversation. And maybe the most important part is resilience. We go from a fragile system to one that can actually heal itself. A local microgrid can island itself off from a blackout and keep the lights on for a hospital or a neighborhood. The system isn't just resilient to shocks, it actually gets stronger from them. It's anti-fragile. So this all leads to the ultimate endgame, the North Star for this new grid, the Autonomous Energy Grid, or AEG. The vision is literally a self-driving power system. It's a network of intelligent little cells that are constantly talking to each other, optimizing themselves based on supply, demand, and price. It acts less like a clunky machine and more like a living, breathing organism. But of course, you can have the most amazing technology in the world, but if nobody can actually afford it, what's the point? And that's where this next piece of the puzzle, financial innovation, becomes absolutely essential. For decades, this was the wall. This was the problem that locked hundreds of millions of people out of the clean energy revolution. A small solar system might be way cheaper than buying kerosene over a few years, but that initial price tag, it was just an impossible barrier to cross. This wasn't a tech problem, it was a money problem. The solution that emerged was nothing short of brilliant, the pay-as-you-go model. What's so clever is that it uses the last great technological leapfrog, the mobile phone, to unlock the next one in energy. Instead of saving up for a huge purchase, families can make tiny, flexible payments for a solar system using the most basic mobile phone. It turns a massive capital cost into a small, predictable operating cost, just like topping up your phone with minutes. I love this quote from Francois Laborie at Cognite. He says that when you combine this accessible tech with accessible finance, all of a sudden, everybody can have superpowers. And that's so true. You're not just giving someone a light bulb, you're giving them the power to study at night, run a small business, and connect to the wider world. Okay, so we've seen the dream. We've seen the incredible potential. Now it is time for a big dose of reality. Because this great leapfrog is an amazing opportunity, but let's be very clear. It is not a done deal. The path forward is littered with some absolutely massive hurdles. And this quote from Rahul Tanya at Brookings really hits at the heart of the dilemma. For many developing nations, the #1 goal is rapid human development, lifting millions of people out of poverty. And for many of them, the fastest, cheapest, and most reliable fuel to do that is still coal. You really have to understand why coal is so sticky. It's often right there, under their feet, so it's cheap and provides energy security. It gives you that steady, reliable 24/7 power that renewables without huge batteries still struggle with. And here's a critical point. A lot of this infrastructure is brand new. The average coal plant in Southeast Asia is only 11 years old. You can't just ask a country to walk away from a multi-billion-dollar asset they just finished building. And then there's just the jaw-dropping scale of the money needed. $215 billion. Let that number sink in. That's the funding gap just to build the mini-grids needed by 2030. This isn't pocket change. We're talking about a colossal amount of investment that has to come from somewhere. But this might be the most maddening part of the whole story. It's bureaucracy. Right now, globally, there are 3,000 gigawatts of renewable energy projects that are fully funded, fully planned, ready to be built, and they're just sitting there, stuck in line, waiting for permission to connect to the grid. That's 5 times the entire amount of renewables we added in 2022, just sitting in a queue. I mean, just look at this timeline. It highlights how absurd the problem is. We can build a state-of-the-art solar farm in about a year, a wind farm in maybe 2.
But getting the permits to build the power lines to connect them to everyone, that can take more than 10 years. The wires themselves have become the single biggest bottleneck in the energy transition.
I mean, just so what all this tells us is that the biggest roadblocks aren't always about technology or cash. So often, the real barrier is institutional. It's a mess of unclear regulations, painfully slow permitting, and a total lack of coordinated policy. In a word, it's about governance.
So where does that leave us? It leaves us in a race, a high-stakes race against time to redefine the world's energy map. We've seen the incredible potential. We've seen the daunting challenges. And that window of opportunity, it's not going to stay open forever.
Let's just come back to this powerful central idea one last time. The prize here isn't just about playing catch-up. It's about taking the lead. It's about building something that is fundamentally smarter, more resilient, and more efficient than the legacy systems we're stuck with.
And this is the choice that leaders across the developing world are facing right now. Do you follow the traditional, carbon-heavy path that the West took, knowing full well that it leads to a dead end of expensive, painful retrofitting? Or do you take the leapfrog path? Do you build these AI-native systems from day one and compress decades of development into just a few years?
The good news is there's a clear playbook for how to win this race. It takes a coordinated push on every front. You have to standardize regulations to slash through the red tape. You have to scale up those digital finance models to make sure everyone can afford access. You have to mandate that AI is built in from the start, not as an afterthought. And critically, you have to plan for the future, making sure that the mini-grids you build today can all be stitched together to form the national smart grids of tomorrow. In the end, it really all boils down to these two images, doesn't it? Two competing visions for our planet's energy future. On one side, you have the past, a fragile, centralized system that we're all desperately trying to patch up. And on the other, a future that's decentralized, intelligent, and sustainable. One looks backward, and the other looks forward. So, this is no longer a question of what's technologically possible. The tools are here, the playbook has been written. The only real question left is one of political will and collective action. Will the world seize this rare chance to build a better energy future for everyone, everywhere? The race is on.